प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य आणीस्थ श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेनाहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Om. May my speech be firmly established in my mind. May the mind too be firmly established in my speech. O self-effulgent Lord, be revealed unto me. May not what I learn from scriptures ever forsake me. Let me live my life day and night according to their teachings. I shall speak what is appropriate. I shall speak the truth. May that protect me. May that protect the teacher. Om, peace, peace, peace. Let us feel our true innermost divine existence, the unchanging, ever blissful, luminous self. Let us think of it as a spark of light in our heart. Let us concentrate on that. The whole consciousness is filled with the brilliant radiance of the self. All merged into this luminous, homogeneous oneness. There is no time, space. There are no desires, everything is filled with serene, spontaneous bliss. I am that. I am everywhere. Om, peace, peace, peace. So, dear friends, let us begin today's discussion with the usual chant. It is, now it appeared. तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलम् श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ते भूरिदा जनाः. Last time we were discussing that Gauri Pandit, a great scholar of scriptures and also a tantric practitioner who has acquired lot of occult powers, he came to Dakshineshwar and was just feeling so blessed in the company of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna took away his occult powers, and therefore his devotion increased. These occult powers, they are an obstruction in the practice of devotion. They, like Patanjali beautifully describes them, that te vyuthane siddhaya samadhau upasargaha. Vyuthane siddhaya. For the worldly purposes, they are kind of powers. But samadhau upasargaha, they are big obstructions if you want to merge in God, in samadhi, or achieve the highest concentration. So, therefore, Sri Ramakrishna withdrew those powers, not with the conscious effort as such, but because of Gauri's devotion, he said, Divine Mother took those powers away from him. And then there was the discussion with Vaishnavacharan, and Vaishnavacharan said, no, it is, Gauri Pandit said, no, I won't debate with Vaishnavacharan today, because that day when Vaishnavacharan came, Sri Ramakrishna, in an ecstatic mood, climbed on the shoulders of Vaishnavacharan, and Vaishnavacharan became absorbed in bliss. So Gauri Pandit said, well, now debating is not good, because Vaishnavacharan, my opponent in debate, has been specially blessed. So he is very powerful. We will not have a level ground, as it were, to play. So not today, some other time. And then he said there is no point in debating also later, when he heard that what was the topic for debating. It was whether Sri Ramakrishna is incarnation of God or not. And Gauri, when the question was brought to him, that does Vaishnavacharan, he said, does Vaishnavacharan call you an avatar? I consider that an understatement. I believe you are he by friction of whose power the avatars come forth to this world in every age and accomplish their mission. So, this is another particular theory about avatar, that it is you are that divine source from which the incarnations kind of emerge. It basically the underlying truth is the same, that it is God who assumes the human form. So Sri Ramakrishna said, well, it is you who say so. Like a little boy, Sri Ramakrishna said, but I know nothing about it. Gauri said, that is as it should be. The scriptures agree on this point, because you don't know yourself. How can others know you? Only one whom you have graciously allowed to know you, graciously allowed to know you, can do so. The master smiled upon hearing Gauri's expression of faith. Gauri's attraction for the master grew day by day. With the master's divine companionship, Gauri's knowledge of the scriptures and the effects of his sadhana reached fulfillment and became manifest as intense renunciation of the world. And this is an interesting idea, friends. The knowledge leads to renunciation. In Mundak Upanishad, you see almost towards the end of the Upanishad that this Atman cannot be realized. Nayam Atma Balahinaina Labhyah. Without the strength, this Atman cannot be realized. And what is this strength? That it is the tremendous holding, determined holding on the about the goal, that I have to realize this. that this Atma Shraddha, that it is this tremendous dynamic faith on this self, that has to be there, that is the strength. And then next line says that nacha pramadat tapaso vapyalingat, that by not following the proper discipline, even though you know it, you falter. There is a tendency in us of faltering. In spite of knowing that I should do something, I waver from doing it, just out of laziness, lethargy. Not that there is any particular valid reason for doing it, but you dig out a reason. So, it is, this is called pramad, that you know this is not right, and yet you indulge in it. And thus, what happens? That your march towards the goal gets obstructed. You do not move forward in your life. So this is what is called pramad. But then comes this idea, a very important idea, tapaso vapyalingat. Shankaracharya interprets here tapas as the knowledge, and the sign of that knowledge is renunciation. If you know, your actions will show that. It is not that I know and do not act on that knowledge. The two things, then the knowledge is not real. The knowledge, if it is real, has to accompany with the signs that justify, the practical signs, that is called linga here. And what is that? When you get the knowledge that God alone is real, when you have that even conviction, what happens is in your life comes the renunciation of all worldly attachments and desires to get those things. Now, it is very, very important point, friends, that and if we do not have that renunciation in life, then the knowledge has no meaning at all. Some intellectual idea we have about, especially the non-duality, and I know God is everywhere, God is protecting everything, and then I am one with the divine. I read it in the scriptures, I can prove it, I can philosophically, I can convince others in a debate, I can write many articles about it. I can, academically I can get a PhD on this. But the test is that if you know this thing, then you will not run after the worldly pleasures, you will not go to accumulate the things in the world. As it is said that if you learn that the food that is served to you and you are just about to eat, somebody tells that it is poison, there is poison mixed with it. If you know and believe it, will you still continue eating? It will just drop off. No, you will get up from there. You don't want to touch that food. So, when one knows that all these names and forms in this world, they are not only non-real, attachment to that is the cause of bondage. And so, if you desire freedom from all these things, naturally you will renounce them. So that is the fruit or the, you can say, sign of the wisdom. If you have the wisdom or knowledge, that will result automatically in renunciation. It is in Gauri's life that came to see that his knowledge was real and not something that was acquired by a bookish scholarship. The bookish scholarship is a very dangerous thing, friends. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that if somebody is scholar but still runs after sense pleasures, he said that kind of Vedanta, I pee on that Vedanta, he said, using his special direct language. He said, I pee on that kind of Vedanta. So, this is how Gauri's life changed. And that is what happens when you are in this exalted holy company. Your association changes. You see what is truth, and all the shackles that were binding you to the passing phenomena of this world, names and forms, all these so-called attractions, they all kind of melt away. They are gone. So this is the knowledge leading to renunciation. So that is what happened in his life. Gauri lost and well, this is the page 566. So Gauri lost his pride of scholarship and his pomposity and his passion for debate was silenced. He now realized that he had spent so much of his time in vain without trying his utmost to realize God, and that he should no longer misuse his time. He firmly resolved to renounce everything, completely depend on God with wholehearted devotion, and spend his remaining days calling on him with intense longing. Thus he hoped to achieve divine grace and the vision of God. So, this is how the life of this wonderful scholar, who used to take pride in scholarship and defeating the other scholars in debate. He was very much attached to all the occult powers and the worldly benefits that accrue due to that. But the company of Sri Ramakrishna, so many days he has been staying in the company of Sri Ramakrishna, didn't want to go back to his home. As the days passed, Gauri passed days and months in meditation and in the blessed company of the Master. Because he had been away from home for a long time, his wife, sons, and others repeatedly wrote letters asking him to return. They had heard that he was associating with a crazy monk of Dakshineshwar and that his mind had been affected. Gauri was quite worried. He deduced from those letters that members of his family might come to Dakshineshwar and try to drag him back to worldly life. After long deliberation, he hit upon a plan. When he learned that an auspicious time for renouncing the world had come, He went to the master and bowed before him, tearfully asking his permission to leave. The master asked, "What happened, Gauri? Why do you want to leave so suddenly? Where will you go?" Gauri replied with folded hands, "Please bless me so that my desire will be fulfilled. I will never return home without realizing God." From then on, no one could locate Pandit Gauri despite a great deal of searching. So this is how this story of Gauri, who came actually to test Sri Ramakrishna and to certify or otherwise that he is an incarnation of God. His whole life changed, like that of Vaishnavacharan. And that is how, if somebody is really a wonderful and a true aspirant, then such wonderful changes come in that person just by seeing this great saintly life of Sri Ramakrishna. Being in the company of Sri Ramakrishna changes that. It is the magnetism, gets induced if some pieces of iron are close to a powerful magnet, then they also get changed into magnets. So the life of Gauri also changed. On many occasions, the Master related to us various episodes from the lives of Vaishnavacharan and Gauri. Sometimes he would refer to their opinions while discussing a particular topic with us. And we remember that while advising a devotee one day, the Master said, "Only when one develops the firm conviction that the chosen deity dwells in every person will one realize God." Vaishnavacharan used to say, "One attains full knowledge when one believes that God plays as human beings." And this is God plays as human beings. To feel the presence of God in human beings, that they are human beings in shape, but inside it is all filled with God. Like if you cut, say, a cake in different pieces. Now, each piece may have different shape, but they are all the same cake in all of them. So you see them as cake. The example that I gave, animal cookies or animal crackers, they are all different shapes. There is a doggy, there is a lion, there is an elephant. What are they? They are all the same one substance with various forms. So, when a person, a grown-up person looks at them, he sees them as same. So, the person whose wisdom has awakened sees all different beings as God. So this is the sign of realization. Do you get it, Paul? That when one sees that same one divine being percolates everything, everyone, a person may be good, a person may be rank evil, a person may be very educated, a person may be just illiterate. All of that is just different shapes. God is in and through all of them. They are actually just different shapes of God. So when one gets this conviction, this is the truth, friends. This is the truth. The more one appreciates it, the more spiritual and blissful one becomes. It is, and when one sees it completely, then that is bliss. That is the God realization. So this is how Sri Ramakrishna used to quote Vaishnavacharan saying this. Sometimes when the master observed a devotee's bigoted sense of distinction between Kali and Krishna, he would say, "Your mind is so mean and dogmatic. Know that your chosen deity has become Kali, Krishna, Gaur and everything. This doesn't mean I am asking you to renounce your chosen deity and worship Gaur, but you must give up your dogmatic idea. Hold on to the firm conviction that your chosen deity has become Krishna as well as Gaur. Look, when a bride goes to her father-in-law's house, you have to go back into that space, that time, when the bride, when after the marriage, the bride would go and stay at the in-laws' house. It used to be the system of a joint family. And this joint family means many siblings and their families, their wives, children and all, they would stay together. The eldest in the family, the eldest male in the family would be like the one who has all the controls. So it is the head of the house, and that is how the people used to live those days. So joint family. Somebody told me these days the idea of a joint family is when husband and wife are living together. So that is the maximum joint family that one sees these days, which is also not always possible. So it is Sri Ramakrishna is giving the example of that time. Now a newly wed bride has gone, leaving her parental home to the in-laws family. Now there are so many people living there. So now she loves, respects and serves her father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law and brothers-in-law accordingly. But only with her husband does she open her heart and share her bed. She knows that it is through her husband that her father-in-law, mother-in-law and others are her own. Similarly, you must relate to your chosen deity as a woman relates to her husband, and realize that it is through your chosen deity you are connected with his or her other forms. You must love and respect them. Thus you avoid any dogmatic idea. Gauri used to say, only when I experience Kali and Gauranga as one shall I consider that I have true knowledge. He used to quote Gauri Pandit. On many other occasions also, in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you see the mention of Vaishnavacharan and Gauri Pandit from Sri Ramakrishna's mouth. When the master came to know that a devotee's mind was agitated because of his attachment to someone in his family, he advised that devotee to love and serve the object of his affection as a form of God. We mentioned earlier, see the third volume, he has given a reference, that the master advised a woman devotee who was very attached to her young nephew to love and serve that child as Gopala, the child Krishna, and as a result she soon began to experience Bhava Samadhi. And Bhava Samadhi is that kind of ecstasy where you are holding on to one particular mode of devotion. So that is called Bhava Samadhi, as against the Samadhi where all names, forms and all distinctions are dissolved. So that lady started having a Bhava Samadhi. So sometimes while speaking about how to love and respect one's object of love as God, the master would refer to Vaishnavacharan's opinion. Quote, Vaishnavacharan used to say, if, again a quote within quote, if anyone considers his object of love as his chosen deity, his mind gets absorbed in God quickly. He would explain it immediately, saying, Vaishnavacharan would advise the women of his sect to practice that kind of sadhana. They incurred no blame for doing this because they had adopted the mood of having a paramour. They tried to superimpose upon God the attraction that they felt for their paramour. The master said further that this sadhana should not be taught to the general public because it would promote adultery. However, we know that he did not disapprove if any woman devotee wanted to love and serve her husband, son, or any relative as a form of God. And he even taught some devotees who took refuge in him to practice that attitude. This is a technique by which the renunciation can come in life. A person who is just absorbed in the worldly various relations, but has the desire to be devoted to God. And this is the problem that we all have, that we want to love God. We don't want to love the worldly connections. We want to love God. This is what we want. What happens? The mind is still getting pulled towards the worldly attractions, even though we don't want it. So we are not able to go where we want, and we are dragged by our attachments towards in the direction where we don't want to go. Now what is to be done? It is the technique advised is, well, just switch the roles. That whomsoever in this world you are attached to, think of that as God. Think that you are loving God, serving God, and superimposing God there, because after all it is true that it is God. So, if sincerely one can do that, okay, I am now attached to this person. Hey, give up that attachment. The person will not be able to do. It cannot be just done with putting gun to that person's head. Give up your attachment to the world, else I will pull the trigger. That will not work. So, what is the psychologically effective way? That is, okay, think of that person that you are attached to as God, and try to feel that you are getting connected to God, you are serving God, you are loving God. So, gradually now one will be able to see the truth if and only if one is sincere. Otherwise, it is going to be just continuation of the worldly attachments with just changed name, that's all. It should not be just changing the name, but it must be changing the attitude about it. That it should be not like getting attached to my son or my spouse or somebody, but it is learning to see God there. It is, then it will be effective. It is not just changing labels, friends. It is not that, okay, that we suppose we have run out of sugar, but we have a lot of salt. So take some salt and label it as sugar. Will it change its nature? It will not change the nature of it. So, not that just by changing the name it's going to change, the effect will be different. But we have to do this, that our awareness has to undergo transformation. And this is a technique that you have to, your mind is going there to the different relations. It is just by force of this discernment you are not able to get it out. Okay, then use this technique. It is, they use many engineering techniques like that. It is like moving big stones. It is, I saw one video how the big stone is to be pushed upwards on a hill. So it is even elephants would not be able to pull them as it is. So what is to be done? That you have to put some, that is what it was discovered that they used to do in the olden times, that push some rounded logs under it, push it there, and then those logs would be pulled by the elephants. Also, that there would be, as the elephant pulls it a little bit, and now it is easier because the resistance is only those rounded logs, like wheels, it is like rounds. So you push those and then let the elephants drag those. So as if you have put wheels there. It is. So it gets pulled, and make sure that the wheels have that kind of, those angular gears so that they don't fall back. And the wheel will be able to go only in one direction, not in other direction. You might have seen such, these tracks in some trains, in the hilly region. Like I saw one in Switzerland, going to the highest peak. There is a train. So that train has to move forward upwards, but then it cannot fall back because there are those gears. So it will be able to go only in one direction. So similarly, this relation has to be transformed by that understanding that this is God in this form. So gradually the attraction for the form will go away, and you will increase in the intensity of devotion to God. So this is how the technique is to be used. So on a little reflection, one can easily understand that the previously mentioned view is neither new nor unscriptural. The Rishi of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, in the second volume, 4th verse and 5th verse, in the dialogue between Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi, taught, "Verily, not for the sake of the husband, my dear, is the husband loved, but he is loved for the sake of the self. Verily, not for the sake of the wife, my dear, is the wife loved, but she is loved for the sake of the self," and so on. It's a very famous passage of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and it is considered by Shankaracharya, an authority like Shankaracharya, that it is the great teaching of renunciation summarized in this way, that know that all love is happening because of the self. Self alone is loved. When you see that self in something, maybe consciously or unconsciously, you start loving that. Till then there is no love. Any woman I don't love, but my mother, and then the love is there. Why? Because I has been tied to it. So because of that the love comes. Even my cat, isn't it, Naomi? My cat. So not every cat is getting the same love, but when that cat is connected with me, I is there, the love starts manifesting there. So I therefore is the source. It says therefore that I is the source of all sense of love and attraction, and so therefore find out I and realize I, so that you will get your love, your bliss. That is how this Upanishad says. Like when I ask many people that, oh, why do you do this? Well, I like it. I like it. But then after some time they don't like it. So give it up. So that was a temporary feeling of liking there. Try to investigate, see that what was really being liked, and you will see it was the self that was the source of all liking. Navare patyu kamaya pati priyo bhavati atmanastu kamaya pati priyo bhavati navare jayayai kamaya jaya priya bhavati atmanastu kamaya jaya priya bhavati. that Sanskrit words that of this, that the husband is not dear for husband, but for the self. The wife is not dear because of the wife, but because of the you have invested self therein, and thus it becomes dear. So the self is the source of all dearness, love, attraction, and so direct all your energies to realization of the self. So this passage concludes that therefore one must make a full throttled effort to realize God, the self, that it is Atma Vai Are Drashtavyah. This Atman alone is to be seen, to be realized, and the method is also told right there. Shrotavyo, mantavyo, nididhyasitavyah, that keep on listening about it in various ways. Keep on listening. Understand, listening means taking in, either by listening or by reading or by any other means. The idea is to take that in, and God is to be taken in. God is to be thought about, mantavyo, nididhyasitavyah, and hold on to that with unrelenting determination. And thus what will happen? That you will see this truth. So this is what Vaishnavacharan used to say. Sri Ramakrishna used to quote that is how the life gets transformed. The worldly attractions get transformed into spiritual attraction. It is otherwise running away just from the object is not going to result in true renunciation. That is not renunciation at all. It is you ran away from home, and what did you do? You made another home. That is not renunciation. No, I don't want to stay with my wife and children. It is too much of a bondage. And so you ran away. But then it was not done with the idea of realizing God. The wife and children, they were tormenting too much, demanding money, this, that. So this man decided to run away. And then Sri Ramakrishna used to say he went to Kashi, and then after a few months the family members received a letter that, oh, now I have settled here, I have started a small business, and soon I will bring you all here. So that is not renunciation per se, it is running away due to irritation and not devotion. That I don't want to see you, that is not renunciation, it is due to irritation. This is very different, friends. So one has to see that it has to come through the devotion to God, and the renunciation therefore can take this form. Whatever you like or wherever your mind goes, think of God there and love that God. So this is the important idea, that thus all human beings, all wealth and everything in this world prompt loving feelings and attract the mind, because loving and blissful divine being pervades them. The rishis of the Upanishads experienced this truth and from ancient times taught us to love all beings and objects. It is evident that Narada and other teachers of the path of devotion followed in the footsteps of the Upanishadic rishis when they advised people to divert the forces of lust, anger, and so on towards God and call on Him by adopting attitudes such as Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhura, and so forth. So that is how the master's view thus agreed with the scriptures. It is that well known that divine incarnations bring a new gospel to the religious world without contradicting the previous ones and always honor the authority of the earlier scriptures. One sees this when studying the life of any avatar. In this book, we are attempting to explain to the reader that we have found full evidence of this in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, the avatar of the modern age. But if we fail to convince, because people are kind of die-hard, obstinate, rooted in that obstinacy, they don't want to see this. But he said that here, but if we fail in convincing the readers of this truth about Sri Ramakrishna's divinity, let the reader know that it is due to the fault of our narrow-mindedness and is not a flaw in the spiritual world of a unique truth. It is not a flaw of the Master who marveled humankind by unveiling for the first time in the spiritual world a unique truth. So this is how he said that as many faiths, so many paths. This was revealed by Sri Ramakrishna. So this is how this chapter here is ending now, but there is some important things left still to be considered. It is only a short passage, but still the time is, it will require long time to meditate on those lines. So we shall discontinue here and take it up when we meet next Tuesday. Hopefully we will be able to conclude this wonderful chapter about Vaishnavacharan and Gauri Pandit, a great learning episode in Sri Ramakrishna's life. So we shall meditate on it for 30 seconds, and then in case if anybody has a question, we shall discuss those. Yes, please, any question?
Swamiji, no web question yet.
No web question, okay. Here there is, Paul has some question.
Yes, so to love our enemy is to love ourselves.
That is correct. It is, enemy is a form that one has taken. Paul's question is, even when the advice of Jesus, love thy enemy, that also is actually loving ourself. Yes, the love is prompted by the same self being there. Why he particularly mentions enemy? The earlier line in his sermon is very important. It has been told that love your friends and hate your enemies. But I say unto you, love your enemies. Now, what actually is happening, look at the psychology of it. Can you love enemy? That's not possible to love enemy. What is happening there is that the animosity is removed. Then you love that as well. God is there too. It is the presence of God thus is felt there. This is how one learns to love enemy. Otherwise, it is not possible to call somebody as enemy and love. So what happens is that you tell yourself that because of certain conflicts, you are seeing that person as enemy. But that doesn't mean actually that the person is bad. Every person is good for somebody. There is nothing who is absolutely bad. The person is liked by some others don't like. But that is with everyone. There is no one who is universally liked. And there is no one who is universally hated. It is like that. So, know that my animosity is not right there. That also is expression of God. And so, the same self is there as well. Same self. Like when you stand in front of the mirror. Imagine that Paul standing in front of the mirror. Now Paul sees exactly a likeness of his, but reversed. And the left has become right, right has become left, a kind of conflict. So, but then you do not go and smash that fellow in the mirror, that you terrible impersonator. It is, you have reversed everything. The left has become right, right has become left. What is this? So, but it is you. It is you. So, everything in the world is I, reflected in all. The same self is there, and thus one can love that. Very good. Yeah, it is loving the enemy is due to there is that same self in the enemy as well. So,
Swamiji,
ah,
I have a comment on that.
yes,
What Paul said. In Gandhi, he said that I do not hate British, but
Yeah.
I hate British imperialism. So in an enemy, it's not the hatred towards the person,
yeah.
but the person's actions could be resisted or,
Yes, it is. That is a very important statement of Mahatma Gandhi, and that is actually a great reflection on how, although India fought with Britishers to get independence, yet that was a kind of fight without hatred. That okay, well, we are not haters of Britishers, but we want our independence. We won't be tolerating your governance on us, and so even though we respect you, we don't want your control over us. So this was a great step that prevented the hateful relations between India and Britain post Indian independence.
and that's also seen in the relatively recent is
Yeah,
Nelson
yeah.
Mandela's case.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
they won the independence, but they did not hate.
Yeah,
The
that is,
Afrikaners.
yeah, they did not hate
Although he
because
was imprisoned 25 years.
yes, yes, it is. They did not hate because the understanding that the Mahatma Gandhi, being a student of Bhagavad Gita, he could relate to that more easily. That it is that same thing you find in many such illumined leaders who led protests like Martin Luther King Jr. You see, he led that protest, but sans hatred, that is, and he speaks about Mahatma Gandhi in that respect, that it is that through Mahatma Gandhi he could see this idea that it is, and of course he was a reverend preaching Bible. Same idea is preached in Bible also, love thy enemy, right?
Swamiji, there is a question from Charlie.
Well, okay.
Why did each Abrahamic religion reject the previous one, and Buddha rejected Hinduism?
Well, it is not that they rejected. It is Jesus did not reject it. He said, well, that I am building on that. When you have the foundation and you build some construction there, you are not rejecting the foundation. So Jesus built his system without contradicting Judaism. And so also Mohammedanism does not discredit Jesus or Moses. They respect them as well. It is, and Buddha did not disrespect Hinduism. Buddha only, what happened was, only certain practices which were against even Hindu religious spirit, he abandoned and rebelled against those practices. Actually, as Sri Ramakrishna mentions, what Buddha practiced and preached was a very pure form of Vedanta, cleansed of all different rituals. So, Buddha did not in that sense rebel against Hinduism, but if we read that against two specific things. Firstly, the adherence to various meaningless rituals. The rituals, when practiced without the meaning behind those, then they become lifeless, meaningless. So Buddha rebelled against those injunctions. Second thing, and that is very subtle, that they taking the words of the Vedas as the authority, one moves forward to realize those truths. But how did the words of the Vedas came? It is actually somebody realized it, the same truth, without even looking at the Vedas, and then that came from that person. So actually that is how the Vedas as particular instructions or book get formed. So he did not reject the Vedas in toto. Actually, if you see his methods of, say, Panchashil or his eightfold noble path, the eightfold noble path is no different really from the in similar instructions in Upanishads of how to control your life and put it in the right direction. So it is only those who have not studied the Vedanta or even the spirit of Vedas and the original spirit of Buddhism, they only make such comments. If they study properly with calm mind and try to understand, which is very difficult to happen in the so-called academic world, full of lot of jealousies and desire to get name and fame and publicity. Therefore, that calmness does not occur. So academicians, they keep on throwing such meaningless opinions that the Abrahamic religions, one condemned the other. No, it didn't. It built on others. See the statements of Jesus, that he says no word in the scripture will come to false. I have come to fulfill. What a great statement. I have come not to destroy but to fulfill. So it is just out of total ignorance of these teachings that such opinions get conceived and publicized. So let us conclude with the closing prayers. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahur Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving Being manifest Himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.